what's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent. We just got a teaser trailer for the new expansion of Guild Wars 2, End of Dragons. End of Dragons is the third expansion, and we just got a little trailer. It's very teasy, so it's just kind of a cute little artistic cinematic. We don't know really any mechanics. We don't know how the story's actually going to unfold, and we don't know what's really in store for the MMO community when it comes to this expansion. But we can make some assumptions based on how Guild Wars 2 has shown itself in the past. And I think pretty safely say that this expansion will be fun. I think it will be well received. And I think it will be short-lived as well. I think it will be an explosion of something very unique and something very gimmicky. And I think that for the most part, it will probably wrap up Guild Wars 2. It'll be a one-and-done sort of expansion that you can almost consider it like, oh, I'm going to buy a new action RPG. You know, I'm going to go buy this thing and you know, that's pretty much it. You play it through, maybe come back for some events or, you know, as they kind of dish out maybe some more end game. But for the most part, this is going to be a standalone. Ooh, I know a way to explain it. You guys ever been to Disney World? So if you go to Disney World, you know it's not just Disney World. Just like Guild Wars 2 is not just Guild Wars 2, you have to buy the expansions. You go to Disney World, you have to buy tickets for the Magical Kingdom, and then Epcot, and then like the Animal Kingdom, and then, you know, all the different parts of the park. There's expansions to the park, and you have to, you know, get access to each one. They're all very different, have their own themes and their own rides. That's what Guild Wars 2 is. In my opinion, Guild Wars 2 is the defining theme park MMO that actually has unique rides and unique experiences that you specifically queue up for or that you run to and you do. And it just, to me, Guild Wars 2 is the Disney World of MMOs. And that's why it's my most played, it's my most beloved, but it's also kind of why I don't really play the expansions, is because I can play them whenever I want. I can do them whenever I want. And I don't really feel an incentive to play consistently because I don't have that, you know, like, oh, I got to play the end game. I got to stay tuned for this next patch or update. And that's a great thing. That's definitely been the philosophy of Guild Wars 2. But also, the way they dish out content is like, I don't know, you could just skip Heart of Thorns. And you can just skip Path of Fire. You could just jump right into this expansion for the most part, get to max level, jump into this. I mean, why not? Maybe. And that's kind of a good thing. But it's also... it is a little awkward. You know, there is a kind of a double-edged sword to that, I do think. And overall with the monetization of Guild Wars 2 and just how people feel about it. Yeah, it's a game that you can just jump in one and done. Yeah, that's awesome. We don't need a subscription fee. We don't need to play dailies. But, you know, MMO. It's almost like we kind of want that. We kind of want to play every day. We want to jump in and communicate with our guild nonstop. And this is Guild Wars. But what I have found is that Guild Wars 2 is a game that just has always had a limited lifespan, and that's kind of okay. Kind of. Anyways, so we'll rant about that. Anyway, this expansion, though, it's going to focus on Kantha, and that's going to be an Asian-themed zone, which was included in Guild Wars 1, which I barely touched myself. I need to actually go back and play it. But just so you guys know, Guild Wars 2 is kind of a merger of concepts between games as a service and something that I just call like a one-and-done kind of game. Like Dark Souls, one and done. You could play it once, get your 60 hours, and you're done, and it will, you know, you have those memories and that experience for the rest of your life. Literally, it changed my life. That's okay. 60 to 80 hours, awesome. You don't need to play for thousands of hours every single day to get something out of a game, even if it's online. So that's what Guild Wars 1 was. Guild Wars 1 was a co-op RPG, and it was barely games as a service. So now Guild Wars 2 is a totally different genre. It switched to MMO. It switched to a more service style thing. It was going to have like a living, breathing world thing where new updates, they even call it living story, and seasonal events. And it was going to focus on this, you know, actual changing world that players could even engage with, right? And change a little bit. They kind of dropped that, and they decided they're going to do expansions. And then when they started doing the expansions, they kind of slowed down a lot. And things kind of got fragmented. They were really split kind of thin. The esports scene died, the world versus world kind of died. You know, a lot of the game, it just was very spread thin, and it could have been this big epic games as a service, but I don't think they had the money or attention that they needed to kind of keep doing that. Maybe it was short-sighted, I don't know. But in the end, no, Guild Wars 2 is still my favorite MMO, and it objectively does certain things better than any MMO, especially the open world giant boss fights. They're just the best. Maybe second might be BDO, and that's second by far. Honestly, Guild Wars 2 is... yeah, just number one. It's amazing. But still, that's still something that you can kind of just do once, get what you want out of it, and then you're done. Do the dungeons once, get what you want out of it. And the amazing dungeons the first time you play them, but then once you learn the puzzles and the gimmicks, you know, then you're done, basically. You ever try to play like Dark Souls the second time and realize how much easier it is? Yeah, it's kind of like that. But that doesn't work for MMOs, you know? It's almost like you need this gear treadmill or whatever. I don't know what the solution is. All I can do is say what you guys are critical about. And a lot of people have commented like, okay, this game, it's not necessary to play all the time. So people are going to fragment constantly. They're going to jump in, jump out, which is kind of awkward for an online game, especially one focused around guilds. And also, then you have all these expansions that are little micro, theme parks themselves that people can choose to do or not do, or just jump in and jump out. Just like everything's very flippant, and the player base just seems very almost scared to invest themselves in this game. And that's just the overall vibe. That's all I'm going to say, guys, is that the general vibe of Guild Wars 2 is people are just a little scared to invest. I will say, though, that, hey, 90% of my time in my most played MMO is in the free-to-play section of Guild Wars 2. You can have a lot of fun with it. PvP is kind of wet noodly, and the progression is really awkward. I gotta say now, I liked it better back in the day when you had way more skills and it was way more hard. It's a little easy and slappy now, and you just kind of spam one ability for a really long time now. That's to kind of help, casuals, because they're trying to get more people to play the game. But in the end, Guild Wars 2 actually does get pretty hardcore. It will slap you in the face. You will die in dungeons. The first time you run a dungeon, you're going to die. You're going to wipe, especially if you do it at level parity. And it's some of the best shit ever. But, there's always buts. And every player is different. And what Guild Wars 2 offers is some really weird stuff. Like the jumping puzzles are kind of my favorite part of the game. And yet, some people just hate them. And that's a big, thick part of the game. Like jumping and platforming. Like, dude, this is like Mario the MMO, almost. It can be. So, Guild Wars 2 just does a lot of weird stuff, and then each expansion is going to include entirely new weird stuff, like the mounts, totally weird, or the gliding, totally weird, like totally different zones that feel totally different. But, as cool as maybe that sounds at first, it's also, again, like a double-edged sword, because this is an online game, and maybe hyper-focusing on a niche and kind of creating very similar content over and over again that people want to grind out and play and stick together with is maybe a good thing inside of MMOs. But yeah, if Guild Wars 2 is for you, you're going to find a great family here. You're going to have a lot of fun. It definitely feels like Disney World, in my opinion, and I'm totally expecting Cantha. In everything that I said, again, everything came with a pro and a con. I think Cantha is going to be gimmicky, but I also think it's going to be cheesy and fun. I think I'm going to have fun with it. I think there's going to be lots of cool, weird jumping puzzles. I think there's going to be a lot of entirely new stuff that I can't even conceive of right now. I didn't see the mounts coming for Path of Fire because originally they said they would never do mounts. And all of a sudden we get platforming, leaping freaking mounts? Hell yes. So I think this is going to be pretty cool. I think that especially with the title naming End of Dragons, it's probably going to give a nice epic conclusion to the base story of Guild Wars 2. And then Guild Wars 2 I do actually think will continue on. I don't think it won't go on. I think there will be a continuation of sorts, but I think this is going to end the cycle of the dragons, and kind of what Guild Wars 2 sort of templated itself on. And then if we're going to get a new expansion, it's going to be something kind of totally new. Maybe we're going to divulge more of the fabric of the universe or universes. And I think it's going to go into a really hyped direction. They might just save that for Guild Wars 3, which is a little scary to me. And I actually do want to end the video on that because a lot of people, once again, a lot of people online are talking about the lifespan of Guild Wars 2. And I'm sorry to rant so much about that, but it's kind of important. So people are saying, well, this is going to be the last expansion, and next is going to be Guild Wars 3. So the thing is MMO sequels almost never work, kind of. It's pretty rare. But then again, MMOs aren't really that old of a genre. It's pretty technically, challenging. But MMO sequels don't work. See, Guild Wars 2 is not an MMO sequel. It is a sequel to a game that was a co-op action RPG, but it itself, genre hopped. Same thing with World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is not a sequel of Warcraft exactly. It is the MMO, extension of the RTS's Warcraft. So to have a whole new MMO, I don't think that would happen. But what I can see is maybe, a totally different genre hop. Guild Wars 3 could be something more like, it could be like a looter shooter or something like that. It could go back to being, it could be an action RPG, which I actually think would be really nice. Kind of do Guild Wars 1, but more like a spectacle finder, more like an action RPG, because it seems like with Guild Wars 2, they really wanted more action and, intensity, and they had some really awesome mechanics that a ton of games copied afterwards. Yeah, Guild Wars 2 was incredibly influential. actually. The weapon swapping, the dodging system, a lot of the aiming mechanics, and even some of its UX was actually borrowed from some different MMOs. So Guild Wars 2, while it's a fading flame, actually, it lived quite bright. And it did some really unique, awesome things that people loved. It's just the pull to play every day. Again, double-edged sword. Is that a good thing? Is it a great thing? Is it bad? I don't know. It's awkward. It's going to just depend on the person. So Guild Wars 2 is not for everyone. Not everything in Guild Wars 2 is even for people who love Guild Wars 2. But it definitely does some really weird and cool things that I think you should give a shot. So I'm hyping up Cantha. And even though I've barely played the other expansions, I will eventually run through them. And I will play through Cantha. And maybe I'll stream it. Actually, some of my best streams were actually playing Guild Wars 2. So it's a fun, cute little game. It is my most played MMO. I just wanted to say stuff and things. This is what echoing is, across the internet. And I wanted to say that, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a forever game. And that's really not a bad thing. In fact, the entire concept of Guild Wars 2 was kind of understanding that as well. At least originally. I don't know how it's going now, but we'll see. I do think this expansion is going to be hyped, though. Anyways, that's all I was going to say. Much love, friends and family. I will see you in the next one.